Hey everybody, happy September. Welcome to the first September Hangout for Backdrop CMS. We get together every week and talk about Backdrop. At this time, it's Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific time. Anybody can join this meeting if you've been a long-time watcher but have never called in, then feel free to join these meetings any week, and you can participate and help collaborate and provide some input on Backdrop CMS. General announcements for this week. Calabox RC1 was released. They just sent out a mailer this morning, actually. Calabox has native Backdrop support, which is exciting for anyone that's all about the containers and the Dockerization and things like that, because Backdrop installs through Calabox using its Docker image, which is all very exciting and very trendy. You can donate to Backdrop CMS at backdropcms.org/contribute. You can get a Thank You Dragon t-shirt and or hoodie for your donations. We also accept any sort of contribution, issue participation, pull requests, etc. And then you can just send a request to info@backdropcms.org, and we will send you a free t-shirt for your contributions. Let's see, and free PHP Storm licenses if you have joined the Backdrop Contrib group, which you can do by porting a module to Backdrop and then going through the Backdrop Contrib application process. We will send you, upon request, a free PHP Storm license that you can use for your open source development of Backdrop. We have lots of those licenses. If you would like one, contact info@backdropcms.org. Updates from the Project Management Committee this week. And there are no updates scheduled in here. We have several PMC members here. Any announcements or anything from the PMC? Okay, excellent. All right, so let's go right into our usual weekly routine, in which we first talk about infrastructure. Infrastructure are things around the Backdrop project that aren't the software itself. Primarily, this means integration with GitHub and our primary website, backdropcms.org. The project packager, this has been fixed. We had lots of on and off issues with the packager kind of having various problems due to some changes at GitHub and then some changes on our end, and then things not working out well together. But we fixed all of those integration issues currently that made it so that releases on backdropcms.org were not properly pointing at the right zip files. That issue has now been resolved. We do have a wish list item on here that perhaps we could stop talking about this every week, but we have a security enhancement that we'd love to implement. We'd like to do MD5 checksums of the zip files and store those checksums on backdropcms.org so that it could identify or pass that information along to the update module on backdropcms.org, as well as the installer module, I'm sorry, in your individual Backdrop websites, so that when you installed a module or a module through the UI, or through Drush for that matter, it could confirm the checksum to make sure that it was the right archive and it was not somehow maliciously swapped in transit, which seems unlikely but is entirely possible under weird circumstances. So that issue is issue 1992, a security enhancement that we'd love to get integrated. Testing infrastructure, we have a long-standing issue to add JavaScript-based testing to Backdrop. That issue is issue 2097. Drupal 8 recently added JavaScript-based testing into Simple Test, which we feel like it would be entirely feasible for us to backport into Backdrop itself, and that would enable better testing of all of our JavaScript-driven interfaces, which is increasingly important, especially with things like our rich text editor and dialogues and a lot of interfaces that are currently JavaScript only. Um, Automatic updates. This is definitely a wish list item and not something that's slated for the next release. Actually, it's not slated for any release currently, but we would love for it to be possible as part of our commitment towards lowering the cost of ownership of websites. We would like to enable an option for automatic updates, starting with security updates most likely. And we have some ideas around how to handle this, but there's been no implementation started. It's all just brainstorming at this point. You can follow along with that issue at 2024 if you have any insights into that, the challenges that could go around that. I don't think there's been any recent activity there, but it could be you. You could be the recent activity. Backdrop CMS on Pantheon /drush/updates. Jeff, do you want to have any? Do you have any updates to report on Drush and Pantheon?
We need testing on it. I put out a blog post on backdropcms.org, and that should serve as the guideline for steps to reproduction to verify that this works. And if we feel that it works, we can merge that into the Pantheon upstream repo that we have. And I think Jen's volunteering to test that.
Yep.
Great.
Awesome.
The other Drush things are known, and they just, as last week we said, they just need investigation, and nobody has had the bandwidth yet to do that, but they will come onto our radar at some point and do that investigation. I think that's over to Jen, probably.
Okay, great. Yeah, I could elaborate further on that, but yeah, it's all in the issue queues. Okay, flagship website is the next item in infrastructure. We talked a lot about this in the last meeting, actually. It was the design meeting, and a lot of tasks are design related currently. But Jen, do you want to do a recap?
Sure. So Nate and I went to Drupal Camp LA last weekend, and the biggest takeaway we had from that event is that Backdrop needs to do a better job with marketing. Surprise, surprise. And in particular, trying to refocus. A lot of our efforts have been so far to try and explain to people what the difference is between Backdrop and Drupal, but we are missing all of the points that make people want Drupal. So I think it would be good to kind of look at the why would you choose Drupal list and add some of those bullets to the why would you choose Backdrop list as well. I put 2 new items on the homepage. One of them was just about the fact that you can expand Backdrop with add-ons, and the other one is that you can write code easily, which are 2 big selling points for Drupal. I think there's a whole bunch of other ones. Those are just ones that I was thinking of off the top of my head. But we should take a look at Drupal's list to make sure that we've got all of that stuff on our list as well. I also got every follow-up question I got with what are you doing about marketing, was do you have a showcase? And so I think we need to kind of make that the next hit list on our site, and we need to make sure that it's not just like a slideshow of screenshots of websites that are running Backdrop, but a compelling story in each case of how Backdrop enabled a company to achieve its goals, or how it enabled it to stay within its budget, or whatever story it is that that company has to sell needs to actually be conveyed in that showcase node, so that it's not just about the picture. The pretty pictures are important, but making sure that there's a compelling story there would be really good too, because the people who are trying to decide whether they should use Backdrop right now are looking for those compelling reasons, like things that are real human beings getting success from using Backdrop. So I kind of have a little renewed focus on trying to figure out what it is we should be doing with the website, making sure that we have kind of personas in mind of who it is that's coming to the Backdrop site and what they need to know, and it's not just the Drupal developer, which is the one we're all familiar with, but also the site owner, the agency lead, whoever it is that needs to see success stories and what those success stories need to tell them. We need to take them into consideration too. So kind of a renewed focus on thinking about what do we actually want them to do when they get to our website? Do they need to read the handbook, or should we like what is the intended goal? We're like, we have a website, but like what's the point? I think sometimes we haven't thought that all the way through. So if anyone wants to help with that, do we want them to sign up for a newsletter? We should figure that out. Maybe if we're going to send one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point too. He said that we should try and figure out people who are leaving Drupal or chose not to use it for some reason, figuring out what their reason is and see if we've solved those problems, and if so, state that somehow, like get that. Yeah, I'm not sure if we talked about it last week or not, but Jeff did all of this fantastic integration with getting download count from GitHub, and after he did that, I was totally motivated to actually make it show up on the website. So if you go to any project page, except for, actually, I think it is even on the Backdrop project itself, you'll now see in the sidebar there's a number of downloads from GitHub as well as active usage statistics. And let me tell you, it looks a lot better with number of downloads than it did just with active usage, which makes me think that maybe people aren't using the update status module, or I don't know. But yeah, it looks great. So thanks for getting that integration done, Jeff. I think it looks fantastic. It's so much better on the site. And then Nate did have one follow-up that maybe we should take that feature and merge it back into Project GitHub module. So anyone that's using the Project GitHub module could benefit from that as well. We don't have to maintain a custom field. There are some advantages to having a custom field. We are currently using the built-in views support and the built-in 1 clock per field thing that you get for free with Backdrop that we would need to write ourselves if it was just part of Project GitHub. But since the other numbers, like the usage numbers, already are facing that issue, we need to do a little cleanup on Project module anyway. So views integration, blocks, stuff like that. I think I added blocks for everything while I was in there, but getting views integration would be great. But yeah, looks good. So thank you, everyone, for all of your help on that. Other stuff. Yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff we want to work on. We talked about support, documentation in particular in the last meeting. We have all of this fantastic in-depth documentation. We just need to figure out how to organize it in a way that makes sense to users, and then we can expose it on the site. The link to the top-level book page for documentation is user-guide, if anyone wants to take a look at it. I think we just need to find a way to make it more easily digestible for the quick start people. Like right now there's one page called Quick Start Guide, and I don't know how we can call more attention to that. Like I would love to have maybe that, like some kind of promo on that thing on the landing page or something, just kind of get new people to that page faster. Other stuff, we're working on forums. We want forums. They're not moving very quickly, but we know we want them. We also know we want single sign-on. That's been a little pain for me to test, so I've been doing other stuff instead. If anyone else wants to figure out how to test single sign-on, I was thinking putting on the API site might be a great place to start. That is where all our developers are most of the time, and our developers are the people who are most likely to have GitHub accounts. So it's also slightly less trafficked, so it would be a safe place in case it exploded. We could unexplode it really quickly without causing too much damage. But yeah, anyone wants to take a stab at that, I could definitely use some help getting that tested. Yeah, there's just a bunch of other follow-ups. If anyone wants to help on backdropcms.org, you can check the issue queue. But I think we have other more important things to talk about this week with the impending release of Backdrop. So let's move on to Backdrop the project.
Coolio. Yeah, I'm excited about the user guide because today was the first day I actually went and looked at it. And there is a lot of really great stuff in there. We talked about that in the design meeting, how it has a lot of presentation things that need to be worked out, but the content is really just great. Which you can see actually at backdropcms.org/user-guide, because I guess people watching, they don't always open up the agenda. Okay, so releases and Backdrop CMS itself. Backdrop 1.4.5 is the next bug fix release. We've actually fixed quite a few bugs in the past couple of weeks since 1.4.4 was released. Yeah, Jen just added to the agenda here that if we don't make another release before September 15th, what will happen is 1.4.5 will be the last 1.4 release that coincides with the release of 1.5.0. Traditionally, that's what we do. We push out the very last bug fix release on the same day as the next minor version, kind of as being the last hurrah of that previous minor version. So you can see all the issues that have been fixed or are slated to be fixed as soon as possible by using the 1.4.5 milestone in GitHub. Let's see, important bug fixes. We have a section here for like catastrophic bugs in our software that need to be fixed as soon as possible. We've gotten most of them nailed down, but we still have this big problem where images are deleted after 6 hours if you've uploaded them into a block through the rich text editor. That's issue 1373, and it needs, the patch needs some review and needs some work. I spent a lot of time reviewing everything that needed reviewing, but I didn't get to this. Again. Yeah, more ideas, more testing, and more implementation all are needed if you want to visit issue 1373. As soon as we fix that, we'll put that in as soon as possible. If it gets fixed in the near future, like in the next week, we will immediately make the next bug fix release to get that problem solved for people as quickly as possible. Okay, the next minor release, which is what we are mostly here for today because it's September. We have only 2 weeks until the release of Backdrop 1.5.0. Which we have been calling the editorial experience release. I'm a little bit worried that we might not live up to that slogan, but it will be an exciting release nonetheless. All right, items that we've got slated for 1.5.0. First of all, 777.50 was released about a month ago, and it included several minor feature improvements as well. We want to make sure that we get feature parity with all of the new items that were added into 777.50 before that release date. One item of note is an issue that we've been working on for a while is adding full UTF-8 support for 4-byte characters, which means emoji support basically for the lay person. So that'll be great. We have a pull request that's fully working. It's marked needs review. It could use some additional eyeballs, but if no additional eyeballs show up, it will be merged probably in the next week. So that's great. The reference module is what I have been saying for months, probably the most important item in this next release, and it's in not a good place right now. It's issue 1301, and it's also in a contrib repository under backdrop contrib/reference. And yeah, discuss. We have that in parentheses in the agenda. Yeah, I'll start off by recapping what happened last week after our video call. Ryan Zarama of previously UberCart, originally UberCart, and then Drupal Commerce fame, had been working on a cart module for Backdrop called Backshop. And then he watched the meeting last week and then got into a Twitter conversation with several people about the importance of actually having an arbitrary reference module instead of specifically a node reference and a user reference module as we have, or as we suggested, putting into core last week. That doesn't necessarily mean that those things are off the table, because reference module could continue to be developed as a contrib module, and backshop or any other module that needed an arbitrary reference module could simply depend on it. But it being in core would be ideal, but we don't have basically the time to finish it at this point. So there's, or to write an upgrade path, which is probably just as important.
I have a question about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you say that we need an arbitrary reference field, that doesn't necessarily mean that the same instance of a field needs to be able to reference users and or nodes. It means that when you instantiate an instance, you can either choose users or nodes or some entity. Is that true?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, there was a little bit of kerfuffle in the issue queue about making a single field reference multiple types of entities. And I think almost everybody has agreed that we're tabling that functionality for a later release pretty much no matter what. But an arbitrary entity reference field just that would allow pointing at users or nodes or terms, one per reference. One type per reference, yeah. Any other ideas or thoughts on reference module? Its solutions for coming up with something in 2 weeks or tabling it for 1.6?
I think that it sounded like the best solution that we'd arrived at was the solution that we were originally taking, and nobody was super excited about settling for a less good solution. So I think we should take the good solution and just push it to the next release.
I think the same. Well, let's not rush things last minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also in that category. We've done that a couple of times with success, actually. Project Browser was
CK editor.
Hurried and finished in. Well, no. I mean that we actually did cram it in, and we actually had success there.
Project Browser had work done on before the January release.
Yeah, that's also true. But you're right that we also have a long precedence of kicking things down a couple of releases if they're not finished. CK editor got kicked twice. It was supposed to be in 1.0 and didn't make it into 1.1 either. And then it got into 1.2. I think that was right. So it was 8 months delayed. But it's better to delay a feature than to delay the entire release. So that's been our policy. So I'm also in that boat. Okay, thanks, Luke. Okay, maybe I'm not sure that we are the official deciding council, the people that just so happen to show up in this meeting today, but I do think that it would be a good idea for us to each express our preference to push it to 1.6 in the issue to underscore kind of our...
Do you think we should open a PMC issue and have all of the PMC members do an official vote?
Yeah.
I mean, what is the deciding factor?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. I mean,
Okay.
It's not actually necessary from a procedural standpoint because we use it for conflict resolution, but I think just to put authority behind it, there's that it's a good idea. That it will basically be irrefutable.
I'm a little worried because Mike hasn't been here the last few weeks. I want to make sure that he has a say in the conversation. And I think if we make it a PMC issue, it'll at least get his attention.
Okay. That sounds great.
Okay.
Okay. Discuss vote to take place. Okay. Good idea. All right, next item for 1.5 is the new front-end theme in core. That's issue 1361. We actually just spent a good chunk of time talking about this one because the design call was right before this, and we really went on down a rabbit hole there during that meeting. So lots of great conversation though about solutions for getting basis wrapped up. Speaking of getting basis wrapped up, a recap. We have been doing a whole lot of work getting core ready to accept basis, including moving things out of 7 and into generic locations so that basis can reuse things like open sans and the responsive tabs and the font detection loading and all of these things that were pioneered in 7, but now we need for basis as well. So they're all being moved into MISC or system module or wherever to be shared between themes, which is great. The actual theme itself also looking really good. I should just stop talking about this because we did this already. Wes, do you want to pull out any highlights or anything that you would like to recap?
I don't know if we said it on this call, but it's going to be a good, I want to say back end, front end, but that's kind of a site editor way of looking at it. But you can use basis to edit your content types, and you can use it to actually, be the user-facing site. So, yeah, it's looking like it's doing quite well there, and yeah, lots of. It's nice that we're kind of thinking about. There's a lot of issues around theme-related things that aren't necessarily basis, but we're kind of thinking about all this, the responsive menu, and all that kind of fun stuff. And I think if there's anything else. Yeah, I mean, use it. Let me know if something's wrong, and I'll try and fix it. I have a lot of tickets to respond to today, so we'll try and get to all those.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of responsive menus and other front-end things, you're right that it seems like because Basis is the feature that is likely to be the big impact, like the banner feature for 1.5 at this point, we're also looking at a whole bunch of other front-end related things to really kind of amp up the out-of-box experience, because people will install the new version of Backdrop and they'll see the new theme, but there's a lot of things in the theme or in that issue that are in a mock-up that we would like to also implement that would really give us some kick-ass out-of-box starting site building structure.
Does that mean that we're going to make this the default theme even though we don't have color module support yet? That we were going to wait for release. Not make it default.
Let's talk about that. I had floated that idea as we could shove it into 1.4 and not make it the default and then iterate on it in 1.4. But if this continues to get polished, then I had been under the impression that it would be the default again. But maybe we should put it in and then, well, it's going to be down to the wire for sure. Like this will probably be almost like a day before decision whether or not we want to make it the default or not. But I think step 1 would be put it in, and then maybe not step 1. Step 9 of 10 is put it in, and then step 10 is decide whether or not it's the default.
I think it's a huge step up. I kind of just want to give Bartik gone.
The boots. Yeah. And I think it's huge from a branding perspective. Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say to back it up is that you can override one file, skin.css, and change every single color. They're all laid out very simply in one easy-to-override file. And if you remove it, the colors will revert to default. But if you override the one file, it'll do everything. So I think even though it doesn't have color module support, it is kind of set up to be easy to make your own, I think.
Okay. Well, that might also be good. I'm not against this idea at all. It was just a surprise because I thought that we'd pushed out all of our processes one release, including the putting it in without making it default. But if you guys want to make it default, I'm totally fine with that. I think it also helps the color module thing where, like, I don't like color module and personally would like to just remove it from core. And so if our default theme doesn't support it out of the box, I think that gives us a little more freedom to do what we want with it. Maybe not remove it from core, but at least we'll get like fewer people using it if we need to make a change for Backdrop 2. So that's a thought.
Yeah, and I want to make a module that's more like it's a superset of colors. So it's like the CSS module. So like kind of like Squarespace, where you have a control that you have a bunch of, like, you might want to change padding, or you might want to change all these different things, and colors of things would be one of them. So yeah, that's what I would rather have, and whether it's theme settings or module or whatever, that's what I'm kind of going.
And if that module does get done in the 1.x cycle and people like it, that might be a much better candidate rather than like figure out what to do with color. It's just like replace color with this instead and make that part of Backdrop 2. So I would kind of rather have your focus be in that direction anyway. And if that module works in 1 with Basis, then like win, so.
Yeah, I pretty much dropped the idea of having actual color module support. I just wanted something like color module support.
Yeah. Ability to change colors, please.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. This is all sounding really good to me. I'm getting really excited.
Yeah. Okay. Next item, new default homepage layout. And Jen, you've been active in that more than I have. Do you want to?
Yeah. So we just talked about that in the design meeting, and I think I have a path forward that originally I was like, oh my god, this is such a slippery slope on all of the other stuff that's tied to the /node thing. And I think our consensus has been, let's put in something new without taking out something old. Because it's going to be easy to put in something new. There's already an issue in the queue for allowing people to turn off /node. I think if we can get that feature in now with this change, that would be fantastic. And then in Backdrop 2, if we want to remove /node entirely because nothing's using it anymore, we can. There's a bunch of other stuff like RSS settings, which are used on /node and on the taxonomy term page. Those pages should be views anyway. I think when we get in the change for those pages becoming views, we can also remove the setting for RSS settings that now only affects those pages. I think it's just, I don't think we should do it all at once. I don't think any of the other problems we're having with the front page should block the new front page from getting in. I think we just put it in as an addition. We can do all of the cleanup later in conjunction with all of the other issues they're related to. And then we also had a chat in the design meeting about how to do our hero block. And basically, we're just going to take a normal block, and we're going to add one extra field to it for a background image. And if no background image is provided, then any theme could use CSS to provide its own background image. And if one is provided in the UI, it'll just be inlined and plunked in there. So it's just a normal block. It has a title. You can put whatever links you want into it. You can format it however you want. But for the most part, the only significant difference is it'll have a user interface for adding an image. That image, Nate was also suggesting we record the file path and not the file ID. And that way, if the path exists on the live server, even if the ID is not identical, you can still deploy your changes. And it'll be a little less strange from user experience to be referencing content in your config. So, good for thought. I think we have a path forward on all that stuff, and I think it'll make Basis look much better. So maybe I'll throw Basis in my local and start testing the homepage on that as well.
We just had that discussion in the last meeting and hasn't been updated into that issue yet, which is 1152 for the homepage hero. Yeah, let's make sure that gets conveyed publicly.
Yeah, I will. I wrote it here, but we were running late, so.
Okay. Awesome.
Can I say something?
That's public, right?
Yeah. Maybe public. Can I say something? Now that you mentioned a field, can we make a start by making this field, allowing this field to have multiple values? So for now, the first value gets picked up and used as an image, but in the future we can use the multiple values for the slideshow thing that we said that might replace that.
I was thinking about that too, but the way that we're printing the image as a background image on the tag is not going to work with multiple values.
Yeah. You'd want something more like field collections where you'd have like a title, a background, and a description for each
one.
slide.
And so this is like the slippery slope I started going down, where it's like, I want an image, I want to enter a title, I want to link around the image, I want to link on the image, I want, and then I realized that what I wanted was a block entity where you can add your own fields to it, and then I wanted a view. And so
Yeah.
what I think this is just going to be like super simple, put a background image on a block, and then the other things we want will be a motivating factor to actually get a content type block into core with an example of being a slide and a view that is a homepage slider. And so I think like kind of forcing this to be limited is going to force us to make that go into core. So I'm thinking that that's the best possible architecture, and we shouldn't kind of like shoehorn it in here just because all we really need for right now is to be able to put that hero on the homepage. And that's something that a lot of WordPress sites have too. Super simple, one thing. And then when you want a slider, we'll give you a fancier slider evening. So I have the same thought process. It's hard.
Do we have an issue for fieldable blocks or no?
We do. I think it's called move bean module into core or something.
And
I don't know where it is. We can dig it up.
And a competing issue to that is add a system for URL-less nodes.
That's right. That was
a completely different option. Yeah, I'm not even sure that they're the same thing. They might be. I think they're separate actually.
Okay,
but,
separate issues.
Yeah, because they're parallel solutions to the same problem, basically.
So I have a really crazy idea. I don't think I should mention until after 1.5 comes out, but related to URL-less nodes as opposed to a new entity type for blocks. I was also thinking if we do get this references thing in, we could get rid of taxonomy as a separate entity type, and it would just be a node that happens to have a view on it. There could be like a checkbox for like show listing or whatever, and then any content that's referencing that node would appear in the list exactly like taxonomy does now. So rather than going the Drupal route where everything became an entity from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7, we're kind of going back to Drupal 6 where everything becomes a node. So we have a node term, we have a node block, like back to when things were simpler, but maybe not better. So anyway, plant the seed. Don't think about that for at least 2 weeks. But it would fit with our URL-less nodes pattern. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
It's funny because Rabbit Hole is both the name of the module that does this and what we're getting ourselves into. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I also want to call out issue 2001 that allows /node to be disabled. I know Jeff and Gregory, you guys have been kicking back and forth on that one. I love the solution to that issue. I love it. Just if /node isn't the front page, then it gets disabled. Brilliant. Like that is just so fantastic because either /node is your front page or you never ever ever want it. Like. So I think that's just fantastic because that will finally turn off /node on everybody's websites that is like, what the hell is this page? You know, they run across it like 2 years after their site is launched and they're like, it's this page that has all this random crap on it that isn't styled and looks terrible. And yeah, so that'll be nice. I think even Drupal.org, you can hit /node and you're like, what the crap? Yeah, so really excited about that issue. Let's see, we talked about the hero block, responsive drop-down menus.
I want to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, so originally I opened this issue and was like, we need to make it easier for people to make their menus responsive. And then at the same time, there was an issue that was like, we can't have drop-down menus out of the box, and there's this usability problem where people go to the menu system and they indent things, and then they wonder why there are no links. And so I kind of merged them together and was like, we need responsive drop-down menus in core. And then Nate came along and was like, I would love to see a new API for menu styles. And so then we got this great pull request from Doc Wilmot that actually implemented an API for menu styles. But I was looking at it the other day and I was just like, whoa, this is way more than like solving our bugs and user experience problems with the current system. I think it actually looks really good. I really like a lot of the directions it's going in. I don't think it'll be ready in 2 weeks. And so in the design meeting an hour ago, we were just talking about seeing if there's a really simple way that we can solve the two problems with like a checkbox that says make this menu responsive or a checkbox that says make this menu a drop-down. put it in right now. And then when we put in the menu styles API, that'll be when we're adding more options to that form that'll allow you to control exactly how your menu should respond. You can maybe change the JavaScript menu that's governing it, all of that stuff too. So that I split out, I renamed the main issue to add a menu styles API. And then I created a new issue that was like, let's just solve this weird bug that we don't have any responsive menus in core, and maybe we can make them drop down while we're at it by using the right JavaScript library. So I think we're doing a little scope controlling now that we only have 2 weeks left, and saying let's just fix this little problem now, and then we'll revisit the menu styles API for 1.6.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's great. Yeah, the whole API thing actually wasn't intended to make things more complicated. It was the fact that or the thought that we might need an option to like turn it on or off, and it's like, well, on or off really might just be no style plus the first style, and then extra styles would just be added. So I'm fine punting on that. It was an idea of maybe we could get more by doing the same amount of work, kind of thing.
The code looks really good. I think you should look at it. It's super clever, but it's a lot more work.
Yeah, clever in the ambiguous way.
I mean clever in the good way, not clever in the bad way.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. Okay, next item, improving the rich text editor is a meta issue, issue 1087, and this really ties into the editorial experience part of this release, but there hasn't been a whole lot of love to it. I've been mentioning that I think the key to a successful release is really going to be driving hard on basis, because it's the feature that is closest to ready, and making that making a big splash with our front-end theme, and then if possible add a couple great bullet features for the rich text editor, if possible. My thought is still, let's put all of our focus on the front end and out of box for this release, because that's what is most likely to be completed, and keep hammering on that. But still, it would be nice if the editorial experience release actually had some editorial enhancements. So anybody that has some bandwidth, you can check out issue 1087. Or ping me, actually, personally, in Gitter or elsewhere, and I would love to help collaborate on that as well. Okay, there's a bunch of other things that are slated for 1.5.0. Actually, some of them have been trickling in. We went through an extensive needs review pass and merged all kinds of things in the past couple of days, or past week or so. So there's a bunch of other things that will also be in 1.5.0 that are nice to have, but not the focus of the release. You can see backdropcms.org/roadmap for future plans. Probably what's going to happen is after we make the decision on references, we'll have an item, have a feature to do for 1.6, because right now 1.6 is, as of yet, largely unplanned. So we also make continuous improvements to user experience and developer experience, so you can find those issues, score brackets UX and DX on GitHub. Speaking of those issues, man, shout out to Gregory, who is now our leading coder as far as pull request counts go.
Oops.
Yeah, oops, sorry, Gregory, the I don't code contributor. We've made a dangerous man here, because now he is filing pull requests at a fast and furious rate, which is fantastic. And they're mostly just trivial changes that are all just being moved right in, which is fantastic.
We don't have a process for what happens when our site builder constituent graduates into a core developer constituent. We're going to need to figure that out.
We had a talk with Vangelis, the WordPress guy, about this thing. He had a few thoughts, and I told him that one of the exciting things in Backdrop is that I've been in Drupal land for like 7 and more years, and I've never even attempted to code. And I think it was Jeff that introduced me to the how easy you can edit a file through GitHub and get a I said right then and there, you have created a monster. I meant this.
Yeah, that's a great thing about automated testing is literally like you can edit a PHP file in the web browser in GitHub and then just say, you know, oh, I just want to change this string, and then hit save, and it files a pull request, and ta-da, yeah.
No risk.
I'm going to get them onto the terminal before you know it.
We've got some Josh issues that need testing.
Oh dear. All right. Well, speaking of Gregory, you're next up on the agenda for the community growth highlights.
Not much changed. So we have 307 total projects on Backdrop CMS. That's not changed since last week. 215 projects with official releases on backdropcms.org. Just one more since last meeting. 345 releases on Backdrop CMS. That's +7. We have 55 total contrib authors. That's not changed since last week, but we have 14 pending applications. 26 organization profiles, which is no update since last meeting, and 351 total users. That's +13 since last meeting. And the new stat that's there is the Backdrop CMS, the core downloads is 6,140, which is +100 since last meeting. And that's pretty much it.
Excellent. Great. News and announcements. Jen?
Hey, Jeff, did you publish your blog post?
Yes, it's live.
Fantastic. I didn't look at that since then. But Jeff wrote this great blog post on Pantheon and Drush Terminus, so if anyone's interested in giving that a read, I was actually taking notes frantically when it was in draft state where I'm like, I hope he doesn't remove this. I need this information. But it's good stuff. So if you are hosting Backdrop on Pantheon and want to know how to do cool things like fire up a new Backdrop install from the command line, because, Gregory, you're going to need that soon. It's all documented right there, which is really good. I was thinking about also doing a follow-up blog post about DrupalCamp LA and specifically talk about marketing things and see if we could get a little more energy from the marketing-y folks to help us with our website. But I'm now thinking that maybe that might not happen because I would much rather write code for Backdrop 1.5. Yeah, we'll see if that happens. If anyone else has anything they think might be good on the blog between now and the release of Backdrop 1.5, we definitely would love more content. So I know Jack is working on a CVCRM write-up. I'm going to follow up and see how that's coming along. But always open to new ideas. Newsletter schedule. We're now 2 weeks away from the release of Backdrop 1.5. Usually we don't send a newsletter about a new release until a bug fix release comes out, so that would give us at least 3 weeks. But question, I haven't sent the newsletter about Backdrop 1.4. Do you guys think I should do it now? I mean, I feel like we should tell people something. Maybe we should do it.
1.5 is coming out soon, tomorrow.
Yeah, we should do one that's like, hey, we're about to do something cool, but we did something cool recently, and we can kind of like get people excited about the new release, like new core theme. I don't know what we can promise. I feel like I want to tell people things, but maybe it's not smart to promise things. I don't know what could happen. But yeah, we could just say, like, you know, keep your ears peeled for new exciting things happening. What do you think? Should I send a newsletter?
Yes.
I think it's yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You should,
right.
you should send the newsletter, but phrase it in a way that's like, miss what's happened in Backdrop CMS recently? Like, instead of being like new 1.4, it should just be like, in case you missed it, like, kind of thing.
Okay. I will do that today then instead of worrying about a blog post. I think that's more important. All right, maybe not more important than 1.5, but I'll make myself do it anyway. Other things, we have a new video in Spanish for Backdrop, which is great. If anyone else is interested in creating videos, I know last week in our outreach meeting, Brian volunteered to do some for us, which is fantastic. He's the owner of bootfitters.com, new, loved Backdrop site, and he wants to do some videos on user interface stuff for us, which I thought would be really good. He also has a lot of experience with videos because that's what he does for boot reviews, so kind of right up his alley, which seems good. So we need some videos. If anyone has any they've already made, let us know. We can kind of curate them into the Backdrop channel on YouTube and post them on our website, all that good stuff. Anything else? Anyone has ideas about stuff we can do for marketing, definitely let us know. We do have the showcase node type on backdropcms.org if you want to start adding sites that you've built. We need compelling stories as to why Backdrop is working for those people and or organizations. So definitely, if you have ideas of how to tell that story, put them there. We will start curating our favorites when that showcase thing goes live, which will be pretty soon-ish. But that's it for marketing. Sprints. Every Thursday after these weekly meetings, we get together in GitHub and solve hard problems for Backdrop. So if you have free time today, you can join us. If you have free time any other day, you can also usually find us in the Gitter chat room as well as the GitHub issue queue, and we are often also still in the IRC channel #Backdrop. You can also always tweet at us at BackdropCMS on Twitter. Oh, and we have a Facebook page where I think all of our Twitter stuff shows up automatically. So if you're not on Twitter and you are on Facebook, you can still see what's going on in Backdrop. Upcoming events, we have an event calendar on backdropcms.org. Go ahead and take a look there for exciting new things. If any of you are planning on coming to Bad Camp in October, I was thinking about getting a bunch of business cards, the ones that Wes made his designs for, printed for Bad Camp, and if you're going to be here, we can hand them all out. So it would probably be cheaper to order them in a big batch and get them all shipped at once, so that could be an option. The files are online if you want to get them printed yourself. Obviously, having them printed in Australia is probably going to be much easier than having us ship them there. Or the design files will be. I'm not sure they're now, but we have designs. I
just added a link to the folder.
So we can take that. Also, we are doing a Backdrop Summit at Bad Camp. I was trying to figure out if we had enough content to kind of rework our summit structure. Last year, the summit was a half a day of training, and this year we might also be doing a Backdrop training, so I'm trying to put in new content there. I've reached out to a couple of people. The Calbox folks want to do a demo. I'm going to try and get someone from Pantheon to do a demo. I've got 2 people lined up to do case studies. But if anyone else has anything they want to share in the Backdrop Summit that's not also selected as a session, we could definitely do that. And then we will do kind of a higher level session at Bad Camp as well for people who are not able to attend the summit. So any ideas for content we should talk about? Also open for Summit Day. We should have working groups or what have you. All right, if you guys are interested in reading more about Backdrop, there are 2 books available, Beginning Backdrop and Migrating from Drupal to Backdrop. Both of them are available both on APRESS and Amazon. Is there anything else we should talk about in the last 1 meeting of this, 1 minute of this meeting?
Yeah, just real quick, when it comes to news, Drupal South is coming up. I did file a session. It's actually one of the late sessions, like most of the spots are filled. I hope that we get approved so we can be there, but it's sort of like there's a lot of late sessions and they're gonna vote and only one gets to go. All right, let's see how that goes.
Okay. I hope it gets selected. I know they specifically reached out to Backdrop and they were like, hey, would you please come talk about Backdrop? And I was like, we actually have somebody there who really wants to come. So I hope that works out. That would be fantastic.
For the roadmap for 1.6, I want to at least put it on the table that we get fieldable blocks in there for 1.6. I know there's debate about what the right solution is, but I think the right solution is fieldable blocks, and that will give us a framework for making views, slideshows, and I think it could probably solve the garbage collection, images going away in blocks too, because we could give CK editor to those fieldable entity blocks and not to the text blocks. And those would be your content blocks, and the text blocks would be your configuration blocks. But if we could get some consensus and get that on the roadmap, it might give it some weight to some people putting some bandwidth to it.
I think we should definitely start talking about it. We've got a lot of crazy ideas about how to do that, and getting some kind of a consensus which path to move forward on, good, regardless of whether we can get it in for 1.6 or not. I would love to see it in 1.6, but it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we'll be able to do it by the next release, but I like the idea of road mapping it nonetheless. Okay, I think that might be it. We're at the top of the hour too, so yay! Thank you everybody for participating. Thank you everybody for watching. We've got a busy couple of weeks ahead of us, but it's exciting. So, okay. Well, thank you everybody. Happy Backdrop Day. We'll see you guys in the issue queue.